Around 3200 BCE, in the flat, sun-baked land between two rivers, someone pressed the wedge-shaped end of a reed into a tablet of wet clay and changed the course of human history. Not to write a poem, not to record a law, but to count sheep. That first scratch in the mud was the beginning of writing itself, and the people who made it were the Sumerians. Before them, there were no cities, no schools, no written contracts, no recorded kings, no stories that could survive the death of the person who told them. Human memory was the only library that existed. The Sumerians broke that limit. They built the first true cities the world had ever seen, invented a system of writing that lasted 3,000 years, and laid down the foundations of urban life that we still live inside today. And yet, most people have never heard their name. They didn't disappear in a single dramatic fall. They were slowly absorbed, their language forgotten, their cities buried under sand. For thousands of years, no one even knew they had existed. So who were they? And how did people in a hot riverside plain end up inventing civilization as we know it? The Sumerians lived in southern Mesopotamia, in what is now southern Iraq, in the land between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers. The Greeks later called this region Mesopotamia, meaning the land between the rivers. It was not an easy place to live. There was little rain, brutal summer heat, almost no stone, no timber, and no metal. On paper, it was one of the worst places to try to build a society. But it had two things that mattered more than all of that: water and mud. Every year the rivers flooded and left behind a layer of rich, dark silt. That silt made the soil extraordinarily fertile. If people could control the water, they could grow far more food than they needed. And that is exactly what the Sumerians learned to do. They dug canals, built embankments, and channeled the floodwater out across the fields. This took planning, cooperation, and large numbers of people working together. Irrigation, more than anything else, is what pushed the Sumerians toward organized society. We don't know exactly where the Sumerians originally came from. Their language is unlike any other we know of, related to no surviving tongue on Earth. Some historians think they migrated into the region, others believe they developed there gradually. The honest answer is, we aren't certain. What we do know is that by around 4000 to 3000 BCE, they had built something the world had never seen before: the city. The surplus of food changed everything. When not everyone has to farm, people become free to do other things. Some became potters, weavers, metalworkers, and merchants. Others became priests, soldiers, and administrators. Out of this grew the great Sumerian cities, places like Uruk, Ur, Eridu, and Lagash. Uruk may have held tens of thousands of people at its height, making it possibly the largest city in the world at that time. These were not villages, they had walls, marketplaces, and at their center, a massive stepped temple tower called a ziggurat, rising above the flat plain like an artificial mountain meant to bring the people closer to their gods. Each major city was its own independent state, with its own ruler and its own patron god. Historians call these city-states. They traded with one another, and they also went to war with one another, usually over land, water rights, and power. There was no single Sumerian empire for most of their history. Instead, there were rival cities, sometimes cooperating, often competing. To run a city this complex, the Sumerians needed to keep records, and this is where their greatest invention comes in. Temples and rulers had to track grain, livestock, taxes, and trade. At first, they used small clay tokens and simple pictures pressed into tablets. Over time, those pictures became more abstract, simplified into combinations of wedge-shaped marks. We call this writing cuneiform, from the Latin word for wedge. It was written by pressing a cut reed into wet clay, which then dried hard in the sun. Cuneiform began as a tool for accounting, but it didn't stay that way. Once you can record numbers and names, you can record almost anything. The Sumerians began writing down laws, letters, school lessons, medical recipes, hymns to their gods, and eventually, stories. Among them is the Epic of Gilgamesh, one of the oldest works of literature in the world, a tale of a king who searches for immortality and learns to accept that he cannot escape death. Some parts of it, including a great flood sent by the gods, echo stories that appear much later in other ancient texts. Through cuneiform, the thoughts of people who lived more than 4,000 years ago can still speak to us directly. The Sumerians were religious to the core. They believed in many gods, each tied to natural forces and to particular cities, gods of the sky, the air, water, and grain. They saw human beings as servants, created to do the work of the gods, and they believed the gods could bring both good harvests and disaster. The priests who managed the temples held enormous power, controlling vast stores of grain and land. Religion, government, and the economy were all tangled together at the top of Sumerian society. Their inventiveness went far beyond writing. The Sumerians are often credited with early use of the wheel, the plough, and large-scale irrigation. They developed advanced mathematics built on the number 60, which is why we still divide an hour into 60 minutes and a circle into 360 degrees. They tracked the movement of the stars and planets, laying groundwork for astronomy. So much of what we take for granted, written records, cities, schools, law codes, even the way we measure time, has roots in this single muddy plain. So what happens to them? The Sumerians were never destroyed in one blow. Over centuries, their independent cities were conquered and absorbed by neighboring peoples, especially the Akkadians, who spoke a different language. There was a final, brilliant revival under the city of Ur, but it too collapsed. Gradually, the Sumerian language stopped being spoken in everyday life, surviving only as a sacred and scholarly tongue, a bit like Latin in later Europe. The people didn't vanish. They blended into the broader population of Mesopotamia. Their name faded, and their cities crumbled into mounds of clay, until archaeologists rediscovered them in the 19th century. There are no Sumerians today, no group that carries their name, but their legacy is everywhere. Every time you read a written word, live in a city, sign a contract, or check the time, you are using ideas first worked out by the people between the two rivers. The Sumerians did not just build the first cities, they built the foundations of civilization itself, and then quietly disappeared beneath the sand, waiting thousands of years for us to learn how to read them again.